Okay, we're going to take the motor out of this lift down here. This assumes that you take your camera off, you disconnect the power supply, the flash sync, the USB, and the shutter control cable so that your camera is off. You want to secure your wires so they don't get screwed up. One of the very first things I'm going to do is I turn this lead screw down manually so that the actuator is not contacting the top limit switch. I do this so that if I'm moving things around, my upper limit switch doesn't get accidentally hit by that contact. I'm going to go ahead and take the controller box off the back. There's already a video on that one. I'm not going to waste time doing that, and then we'll get back to this and how to get that motor out. Okay, the control box has been removed. The tools you're going to need for this whole operation are 3 hex wrenches, a 3/32, a 5/32, a 3/16, Phillips screwdriver to take the box off. We're all done with that. I've tied my upper and lower limit switch wires up out of the way. I'm leaving this wire on in the back. It's not going to be in my way. The object here is essentially to remove these 4 screws that hold the motor on, but before we can do that, we're going to have to remove the coupler. We're going to remove this base plate from the sides, get it out of our way, and go to the motor from the back side. It's a lot easier to do that than to pull the entire lift apart and pull the head off of it. Before we can start, I'm going to flip it around so you can see on the front of your lift, there are 2 main bolts that bite onto these posts. What you got to do is take those and loosen them up. You don't have to take them out, you just have to make sure that they're nice and loose, so that our base can come down. Now what I'm going to do is, I'll zoom in on this a little bit, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this down so that the head of the lift is sitting on a cushion so that it's easier for me to work on. So I'm going to set this down on a piece of foam rubber, and then I'll come and zoom the camera in on the back so you can see. On each side of the lift base, you've got 3 machine screws. You're going to want to take your 5/32 hex wrench, and you're going to have to remove these. You're going to have to remove all 6 of them, 3 on this side and 3 on the other side. When we get those removed, we'll show you what we're going to do. Done. Now I'm going to take the base off. Okay, I've supported the lift so that it's up and off the table, and I've actually put a piece of bubble pack. I wadded it up on a block back here to support the weight of the motor so that the shafts and the lead screw are not dragging down too much past the sides. That's about it. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you how to get that bottom off. These 2 screws are completely loose. This is a pretty good precision fit. As long as you get it even, it'll slide right out. If you want to, you can take a little mallet like this, a little rubber mallet, and tap it. Just make sure you tap it evenly, and the bottom comes out. Now that the bottom is out, it's going to be a pretty straightforward deal to get this motor off. Now I'm going to reposition the camera so it gives you a better view. Alright, here's a close-up of the actual motor where it's mounted. There is a coupler here that joins the motor to the shaft up here. We're not going to loosen these bolts that are attached to the shaft. We're only going to loosen these 2 screws here that clamp this coupler to the motor. The clamp is going to stay on here. This plate's going to stay on here. All we're going to be doing is removing these 4 screws and loosening these 2 screws to slide the motor out. Let me go through that. Okay, I'm going to take my smallest hex wrench, this is a 3/32, and I've rotated the shaft to where I can get to these screws really easily. And I'm going to just crack them loose. They're not terribly tight. If they are, if you find one that's a little on the snug side, you can take your wrench, put it in the long way, and then loosen it up. Okay, now we're going to take our other hex wrench, which is the 5/32 wrench, and we're going to go in and we're going to crack these bolts and remove them. It's pretty much that easy. This comes out. This comes out. Now I'm going to roll my lift over to its side so that I can reach the other bolts easily. Just going to carefully kind of support it. So now it's on this side, and I'm being mindful to support the shaft and everything so it doesn't go flying around. I'm going to cut this one, and I'm going to cut this one. Hope you got the camera on there to where you can... Nope, you don't. Okay, now I've repositioned it to where you can see the screws on the top of the motor. We're going to loosen this one. I'm going to loosen this one. And I'm going to take them out. I'm going to support the motor so it doesn't fall out. This is my last screw. I'll take that out. Now the motor just pops right out. That's it. Motor's out. To put the motor back, it's the same idea. We're going to have make sure that the contacts are pointing the rear of the lift. You don't want the thing this way or this way. You want the actual contacts in the back. You put your 4 screws in, you tighten your collar down, you put the bottom on it, you put the 3 screws back in, and you're done. So that's it for taking the motor out.